So last weekend, one of, if not the biggest professional wrestling event of all time, All In took place at Wembley Stadium in London, England. And it got me thinking back to the first All in Chicago, Illinois, and the fact that I never actually watched it. Like being a great wrestling fan and all that, I really should have watched All In up to this point, but I didn't, mostly because it was the same weekend as Dragon Con in Atlanta, so I had much more important things to be doing that weekend, like getting blackout drunk in a unicorn onesie and seeing the McElroys. So, we all had our priorities that weekend, but now I fixed that problem, because this week, we're gonna be talking about All In. So, brief history of All In. Essentially, back in 2017, at the WWE guy on Twitter asked Dave Meltzer if he thought that Ring of Honor could ever sell out a 10,000-seat arena, in which Dave Meltzer replied, "Not anytime soon." And Cody Rhodes took that personally and said that with 3 months, him and the Bucks and the right promoting could sell out a 10,000-seat arena. But it would not be run by Ring of Honor, like was said in the WWE guy's initial tweet. Instead, it would be entirely self-funded by both Cody and the Young Bucks. And, of course, would have the blessing of Ring of Honor, given how much of their talent would be appearing on the show. Over the course of the next year, through Being the Elite and other various online ventures, the story of All In would slowly begin to take shape, being announced to take place at the Sears Center in Chicago, Illinois, a place that would eventually become like a second home to AEW, the spiritual child of All In. And eventually, the card would get announced to have 11 different matches with 2 pre-shows that were going to be airing on WGN America as a part of All In's 0 Hour. And 0 Hour is where we begin our show as 10,000 screaming fans of Being the Elite go mad as Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks hit the stage in what is, I will admit, a bit of a step down in production quality, especially if you like watching AEW stuff nowadays. I mean, for 2018 and for their first show ever, it's not bad, it's just there are definitely some growing pains there. Now the set is beautiful. They have that taken care of, and for any wrestlers who may have been using some copywritten music as their entrance, they managed to find those dudes brand new royalty-free songs that a lot of them would actually carry over into their AEW careers. But outside of that, there is still a few issues to worry about. For instance, literally the first thing you hear as 0 Hour starts up is the commentary team just coughing and clearing their throat awkwardly. It's definitely weird. And speaking of commentary, it is a literal all-star crew, as we have Ring of Honor's Ian Riccaboni, PWG, and eventually AEW's Excalibur, and of course, scum of the earth himself, Don Callis, which gives us 2 play-by-play and 1 color commentator for the night. I didn't think it would work, but shockingly, they all played off of each other really well, with Ian covering play-by-play and Excalibur working as analyst, or sometimes they would flip-flop, and then of course Don Callis being a huge piece of shit the entire time. It really works well as a commentary unit. So much so that when guests begin to join and Don Callis gets pushed to the wayside, it doesn't work as well. These 3 honestly provide great commentary for the entire show, which begins, like I said, with Cody Rhodes and the Bucks taking the stage to begin 0 Hour. They do some comedy, one of the Road Warriors show up, they end up giving out merch to the crowd. It's basically just a welcome to the event type thing between Cody and the Bucks. After that, we get our first show of the night, which is going to be SCU versus the Briscoe brothers in what is, I will just say, the pre-showiest pre-show match that ever did pre-show. It is bare bones basic pro wrestling. The good guys come in, get the crowd hyped up, bad guys get some heat, the good guys come back, hot tag, run wild, bad guys get in a few last shots before finally the good guys hit a reversal and end the match. It's not bad per se, it's just SCU at this time were less of ringleaders and more of ringleaders. You know, the dudes who would welcome everybody into the carnival, get them excited, but to be honest, I didn't really care to see them wrestle at the time. And that's kind of one of the big things this match suffered from. I much would have preferred to see the Briscoes taking on a different team, but it's whatever. It was a pre-show, it did its job, and that's all I can really say about it. Up next, we have the over-the-budget Battle Royal, which is not the best part of the show, I'll say. In fact, this is arguably one of the low parts of the card for me, because if you've seen my greatest Battle Royal video, you'll know my favorite Battle Royal is the spiritual successor to this match, the Casino Battle Royal at Double or Nothing 2019. But this match was like all of the bad stuff from that match and none of the good. It was poorly paced, the spots were sloppy, camera and commentary were struggling to catch up with everything going on in the ring, and it felt so convoluted and confused, like no one backstage had discussed any of what they were going to do. Like, I'm sure at the time it was great, but I wasn't exactly a fan of it nowadays. The match ends when Bully Ray comes face to face with hometown hero Chicago's own Colt Boom Boom Cabana, and the crowd rises to a fever pitch, hoping to finally see their hometown hero Colt Cabana get a shot at that ROH championship. But unfortunately, those dreams turn to nightmares as Bully flings him over the top rope and dashes any hopes of seeing Colt Cabana at All In. Until eventually, El Hijo del Chico El Luchador enters the ring, super kicks Bully Ray, and reveals himself to be none other than Flip Gordon, a BTE fan favorite who had spent the entire lead up to the pay-per-view desperately vying for a spot on the main card. And now, at the 0 hour, Flip Gordon finally earns that opportunity when he throws Bully Ray over the top rope and earns his spot at All In. But honestly, it really should have been Colt Cabana. I mean, hindsight being 2020 and all that, when you look back on it, Flip Gordon was kind of a bit of a flash in the pan, no offense to the guy, and Colt Cabana being on that main card probably would have done a lot more for the show at the time. And honestly, when it comes to hindsight, retrospect, you know, hindsight being 2020 and all that, it really makes this card a lot worse than it was at the time. I mean, if you look at the Meltzer ratings, he had like a majority of this show all above 4 stars. It was basically a 5-star show for him. And looking back on it now, I wasn't a massive fan of it. I mean, it kind of reminds me of a video I saw from Suplex recently where he reviewed Joey Janela versus Jon Moxley at Fyter Fest 2019, and he brought up the fact that at the time that match was great, everyone loved it, but looking back on it now with everything we've experienced since, it just doesn't really hold up. The bar has been moved forward in such a way that now All In kind of feels lacking. We have these performers who have grown so much now that seeing them back then, it just feels like there's something missing. For instance, look at the first match on the card, which sees M-Dog Matt Cross taking on Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF, a dude who has become a cannot miss part of AEW television, but when you look at him here, it feels like he's playing a shell of the character that he's destined to be. He's yet to blossom, for lack of a better term. It feels like just something's missing here. But I'm sure at the time this was a great match. It felt weird seeing this first on the card, you know what I mean? Like, these two weren't exactly BTE regulars, so, I mean, overall, it's a fun story. You know, MJF goes from losing in the first match at the first All In to defending the AEW Championship in the main event of the second All In, but for the time, this probably was a weird choice to open the show. But otherwise, it was a fair outing. It took them a while to really get going, but when they did, it felt like they had the crowd in the palm of their hands. And M-Dog gets the victory off of a killer shooting star press to end our first match of the night, which was fine. I would have put it a little bit later in the card as a bit of a cool down match, but that's just nitpicky stuff from me. And next up, we have Christopher Daniels taking on famed Hollywood scab Stephen Amell. And once again, I'm sure at the time, this match was phenomenal. I'm sure this match was great. I'm sure Stephen Amell was a standout celebrity in the world of professional wrestling, but since then, we've gotten Bad Bunny. We've gotten, as much as I fucking hate him, Logan Paul. We've gotten dudes who have come from the world of celebrity and absolutely kicked ass in the ring. Once again, the bar has been raised to a point where Stephen Amell just couldn't fucking keep up. His work was sloppy. He didn't sell anything. This was the most celebrity match that ever dang did celebrity. And honestly, I wish we could have seen Christopher Daniels in a different spot on this show. I fucking love Christopher Daniels. He is a badass, from everything from the Fallen Angel to SCU to Bad Influence in TNA. I fucking love Daniels. And yet, I kind of had to watch him do the ultimate carry job for the dude from Heels. So this is whatever. I'll be honest, this may have been one of the worst matches of the night for me, but like I said, I'm sure at the time it was great. Following that, Don Callis leaves commentary to make room for Mandy Leon and Tennille Dashwood as we get ready for our only women's match of All In. Even back then, they had trouble booking the women properly, and much like the second All In, it is a fatal four-way match featuring Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, Chelsea Green, Madison Rain, and known racist Tessa Blanchard. That's right, folks, between Bully Ray, Tessa Blanchard, Stephen Amell, a majority of the matches tonight all feature people who absolutely suck. And believe me, that ratio only gets worse from here on out. The match actually begins with Britt coming out to Adam Cole's Ring of Honor theme song, Something For You, which got a massive pop from me. I love that song. That is probably in like my top 5 favorite theme songs of all time. Like, yo, Tony Khan, I get it. It's all about the boom, that's great, or whatever. Bring back Something For You for like just one night. Actually, if he did it at All In, I would fucking love it, but they probably didn't. Anyways, unfortunately after that, it all really goes downhill. Chelsea Green's really the highlight of the match for me, does some really good character work, but beyond that, the match just felt really sloppy and rushed. It had an entirely botched ending where it felt like the pinfall was supposed to get broken up, but then it didn't, and the ref was forced to count it anyways. It was just bad all around. And overall, to me, it kind of just felt like the nerves of being in front of 10,000 people on an international pay-per-view for the first time just kind of got the better of them, which I can't blame them for. I probably would have had a few missteps myself, but it did lead to a match that was more than a bit underwhelming. Up next, we have the NWA Championship on the line as Cody Rhodes takes on Nick Aldis, and Jesus Christ, they did everything in their power to make this match feel special. They had the video packages. They had both guys coming out to the ring with entire, like, swarms of people. There was, like, Glacier was there, was fucking insane. And then they even bring out Earl Hebner to do the refereeing for it. They did everything they could to make this match feel special, including have one of Cody's old friends, Brent Tarring, join commentary. And that's all I'm gonna say about Brent, because holy shit, his commentary, not gonna say, but it may have cost this match an entire star. So, love you, Brent, but fuck, you were off this night. And the crowd is entirely behind Cody. He is seeking to win the NWA Championship and to make himself and his father Dusty the first ever father-son duo to win NWA Championship gold. And the only thing standing between him and his goal is Nick Aldis, who the crowd fucking hate. There are fuck Nick Aldis chants the entire night, and this is a match that is fully just from the melodramatic, insane world of the Codyverse itself. And if you watched a lot of the Codyverse, you know, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And luckily on this night, it works 110%. There's bleeding, there's injuries, there's run-ins, it is overbooked to hell. There's this awesome moment where, like, Cody's getting beaten down and Brandy's imploring with him like, you don't have to do this. You don't have to put your body through this. Think about your life moving forward. Is it worth this? And then like Aldis drags Cody away and Brandy full on like horror movie screams. It's fucking awesome. Eventually, Cody reverses an attempt at a sunset flip powerbomb into a roll-up of his own, pinning Aldis' shoulders to the mat and securing a victory with a 1, 2, 3. And the Sears Center entirely fucking explodes at this point. They go crazy, getting to see Cody Rhodes finally do it, claim the NWA Championship, and to see Cody Rhodes finish the story in the 4th match on the card. Wow, it feels weird that this happened here. You know, I'm sure it was Cody trying to beat the allegations of like, oh, the promoter's putting himself over by doing it so early in the show, but to me, this is like one of the biggest highlights of the card, and when you get done watching the show, it just gets buried over everything that happens past it. In my opinion, this was the main event. This was the main event of the show, but for some reason, they just decided to bury it lower in the card. It doesn't make sense to me. And luckily, this is where we begin a massive upturn in quality for the pay-per-view, as we go from the 10 pounds of gold to a murder most foul, as the bad boy Joey Janela tries to take out Hangman Adam Page in a Chicago street fight. Now, the backstory of this match is fucking weird. I'm not gonna get into it here. I'm probably gonna do an entire video on it eventually, but here's the gist of things. Hangman Page is a murderer. He killed a guy with a telephone wire in a hotel room and is now a crazed sociopath who thinks his cowboy boots are talking to him. Cool, you get it? All right, fine, let's move on. So I had always heard that this was like the match of All In. This was the matchup of the night, and even going into it with that high of expectations, this match still fucking delivered. This was a car crash carnage brawl of a match from bell to bell. Hangman like hits a buckshot lariat over the guardrail. There's a burning hammer onto a ladder set up at ringside. There's a power bomb off of the ramp through a table setup. It's fucking carnage, all the while doing these fun like callbacks to all of the different moments of the murderous Hangman saga. It was great shit, and it also featured some of my favorite moments on commentary from the entire night.
It's a Chicago street fight. He can murder whoever he wants.
No, he'll get arrested. He should have been. He shouldn't even be here. He should be arrested.
You see, this is kind of where the beautiful thing known as subjectivity comes in the world of professional wrestling, because wrestling has something for everybody and something to fit everybody's tastes. I mean, I'm sure for some people, Cody Rhodes and Nick Aldis had a 5-star classic clashing for the NWA Championship. I'm sure for them, that was match of the night. But for me, match of the night was where the murder cowboy tried to fight off a chain smoker from New Jersey, and it fucking ruled. It was my favorite match of the entire night. It had great storytelling, it had carnage, and it was just like stupid enough to be really, really fucking fun. And then the penis druids happen. Up next, we have a backstage segment where Jay Lethal gets patted on the shoulder and mysteriously transforms into none other than Black Machismo, which I'm not gonna get into the backstory of, but just Jay Lethal is literally just Macho Man Randy Savage. So much so that when he comes out to the ring, he's joined by Savage's real-life brother, Lanny Poffo, to enter the ring and get ready for his match against Flip Gordon for the Ring of Honor Championship. And I think I would have loved this a whole lot more if the Ring of Honor Championship was not involved, because to me, it really made that belt feel super secondary by having this kind of goofy comedy thing happening, whereas, you know, the NWA title got so much intrigue. Even Kenny coming out as IWGP champion, even without having to defend that belt, it felt more prestigious. So I love it for what it did, but it was a weird choice to have the title on the line here. So the match begins with Lethal doing a bunch of different Macho Man comedy spots. For some reason, Brandy Rhodes is at ringside, so he starts chasing her around thinking she's Miss Elizabeth. Jay Lethal, like, harassing her against her will. And eventually that leads to a slap from Brandy, which awakens Jay Lethal and sends the Macho Man personality to the back of his head. This was one of those BTE bits that, like, worked at the time but does not work in a, like, now. I don't know, it's weird. And once he becomes Jay Lethal, we get a Jay Lethal versus Flip Gordon match, which is just as good as you think it would be, before eventually Lanny Poffo gets on the ring apron, slaps Lethal once again, and brings back Black Machismo. And this is where it gets really fucking stupid, because for some reason, Flip Gordon now starts acting like Hulk Hogan, so now we've got Hogan involved, might as well add him to the shitty people involved on All In list at this point, and they have a full-on Mega Powers implode battle before Lethal hits 3 elbow drops from the top before coming off the ropes and dropping Flip Gordon with the lethal injection for that faded 3 count. And I'm sure some people love this match, but to me, and I hate how complainy, I'm really being a complainer this episode for some reason, but for me, it felt like they were doing too much and not enough at the same time. They were like, well, we want to have a serious title match, but also do this comedy spot, and then also Flip Gordon wants to do his shitty Hulk Hogan impression, and it just led to a match that was nothing more than it was something. Anyways, post-match, Bully Ray, the big villain from the pre-show, comes out, assaults Flip Gordon, beats down Jay Lethal, and even takes out Lanny Poffo, which finally brings out the hometown hero Colt Cabana to get a massive pop from the crowd as he enters the ring, fights off Bully, and the 3 baby faces deliver a vicious triple power bomb to Bully Ray straight through a table, just to send the crowd home happy or whatever. And fuck, Colt should have just won. Fuck, they should have had Colt win the pre-show, Colt win on the main. Actually, you know what? Colt's so good at comedy wrestling too that he would have been great in this matchup and been able to, like, fuck. Why did they do it this way? Okay, let's talk about good things. Let's talk about positives. Let's talk about the next matchup as Kenny Omega takes on Pentagon Jr. in what was a dream match for the All In card, which seems a whole lot different through the lens of 2023, I will say. In this match, it just makes me smile. This match is just good. It's just fucking good. It's really good professional wrestling. Like, I tried to look back at my notes to figure out, like, oh, what do I need to say about this match? Like, what big moments happened? All I've written in my notes are just like, professional wrestling is good. Professional wrestling is so fucking good. That's all this match made me feel, was just like a massive appreciation, not just for Penta and Kenny, but for the entirety of professional wrestling as a sport. It's so fucking good. Pentagon does the arm snap at one point, like he snaps Kenny's arm, and commentary's like, oh shit, that's the arm he does the one-winged angel with. And then at the end of the match, when Kenny gets him up, he tries, but he can't do it, so he's forced to do it on the other side, fucking drops him, 1, 2, 3, Kenny Omega wins. Fucking so good. It's such a good fucking match. Like, for me, it didn't have the storytelling aspect that Janela and Hangman had, which is the only thing that puts this as second best. But as far as like a pure fucking wrestling match goes, this ruled. Not to mention, it's followed up with what I would argue to be the moment of All In. As Kenny celebrates his victory, the lights shut off. And commentary immediately try to, say, oh, it's a production issue, which honestly was plausible given how many production issues had happened up to this point. And finally, when the lights do come back on, Kenny's still in the ring, and so is Pentagon. And Pentagon slowly rises to his feet and assaults Omega in the center of the ring, beats him down before rushing him and dropping him with a code breaker, before removing his mask to reveal Chris fucking Jericho, which once again, we're in 2023 now where it's like, Chris Jericho, whatever. Not fucking back then. Back then, that's some fucking insane shit. That's great. Let me put it this way. We all knew, like, Kenny Omega and Jericho had feuded in New Japan, right? But also at the time, allegedly, Chris had made a promise to Vince McMahon that he would never work another company in America. And today, on this day, at All In, Chris Jericho said, fuck that promise. Fuck Vince McMahon, here I am, just because he wanted to beat down Kenny Omega that badly. This was the moment of the show, and it's kind of unfortunate because it overshadows the entire kick-ass match that comes before it. Like, it reminds me of a Brock Lesnar quote where I think it was him and Seth Rollins were talking about, like, oh, I want to do this in the match and do this, and Brock just goes, why does that matter? All that people are going to remember is what happens at the end of the matchup. And that's kind of how I am with this. I'm like, the Kenny and Penta match was so fucking phenomenal, but all anyone remembers is the fact that Chris Jericho is all fucking in. So that's it. That's the story of All In. That's the entire pay-per-view. That's everything that happened. That's the entire card from top to bottom, and nothing else happened. There wasn't any other matches. Nothing else happened on the show. There was no one else to talk about. Nothing we gotta get into. All right, thanks. Follow us on Twitter. Make sure to subscribe. When you're a fight boy, you're a fight boy for life. Awesome. Bye, guys. No, get the fuck off. No, shit. Fuck. Okay, fine. I'll fucking talk about it. So up next, we have the Rainmaker Kazuchika Okada versus the villain Marty Scurll. So anyways, Marty's the babyface, right? Which was really hard for me to parse on this day. And the build-up to this match was actually one of the most compelling of the entire show because it was all about the fact that Okada saw Marty as beneath him, as less than, as Marty wasn't a heavyweight at the time. He wasn't big enough to take on Okada, so much so that Okada would taunt him by going 2-0-5, mocking Marty for his smaller size and his cruiserweight status. And now, on this night, the villain gets to step up and attempt to prove himself. It's such a good fucking storyline. Shame one of the people involved's a piece of shit. Anyways, match is surprisingly 50-50. It's really good. The crowd is even like really split. Like, you got half the crowd, of course, the New Japan marks, being like, fucking Okada, and then the other half, who are the BTE marks, are like, fucking Marty, and then, like, it's such a compelling match between these two guys. And eventually, it leads to this kind of interesting dichotomy where, as Marty attempts to do the heavyweight things, to attempt to be a bigger guy, it results in him getting beaten down by Kazuchika. By attempting to be something he's not, he loses, until eventually Okada once again taunts him with that 2-0-5, and Marty grabs Okada's fingers and snaps the bones before hitting him in the back with a fucking umbrella, becoming a full-on villain, attempting to lock in the chicken wing. When he finally is himself, when Marty Scurll finally is who he always has been and who he can believe in, he begins to win again. It's a good fucking emotional story to get behind. But unfortunately, Marty's arrogance grows to be the best of him, as finally Okada gets the advantage and nails him with not one, but 2 Rainmakers to get the victory. And like I said, this match was good, had good backstory, had good story in the match. It was really fucking compelling. Fucking fuck! That's real. That was a shoot. That was a shoot. Fuck. Oh my god. That was my fucking boy. It was my fucking boy, and he's a piece of shit. Let's talk about the main event. Anyways, we now get to the final match of the card, which is the Young Bucks teaming with Kota Ibushi to take on Bandito, Rey Fenix, and Rey Mysterio Jr., which, I knew he was on the show, but still blew my fucking mind that I was seeing like Ibushi versus Rey Mysterio. It was insane shit. The only problem is the fact that the card had run quite a bit long up to this point, meaning they were only left with about 15 minutes with entrances for this final match. Like, literally within 5 minutes of the match beginning, there's a dude at ringside going, "Go home, we gotta go home, we gotta go home." And unfortunately, that led to a match where it kind of felt like they were just going through the motions, doing their various spots, getting their shit in, and just trying to rush towards the finish. Like, imagine any Young Bucks 6-man tag match. That's it. Don't change your first draft of that tag match at all, because that's literally all this is. And as soon as they get that victory and their hands get raised, show goes off the air instantly. They had no fucking time. They rushed the end of the show so poorly that I honestly think it inspired how Tony Khan books every episode of Dynamite. I mean, honestly, like I said, the main event of this show should have been Cody and Aldis, and this is the perfect thing to start a show. A full-on chaos 6-man match between a bunch of dudes who the crowd were all excited to see, building them to a fever pitch and getting them excited for the rest of the card. Bookend All In with the guys who made All In. Have it start with the Bucks, end with Cody, end with that triumphant moment of Cody winning that NWA championship. But once again, this is all being said in retrospect. I'm sure the day of, they had numerous different plans and went through numerous different motions, and I'm not gonna act like I know how to book a wrestling show better than the son of Dusty Rhodes. Honestly, overall, when you look back, 2018's All In was kind of mid, I'll be honest with you, especially when you compare it to everything else that came after it, both in AEW and WWE. But honestly, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a great thing. The world that All In proposed for professional wrestling, the universe that it wanted to create, the world it wanted to change, has in fact changed. To a point where a show that was seen as 5-star classic after 5-star classic back in 2018 now kind of looks like a boring average card for us, and that's badass. We get melodramatic Cody Rhodes main events on a near monthly basis. We get insane Young Bucks 6-mans nearly every single week, to a point where it's become regular for us. Professional wrestling fucking rules nowadays, and in my opinion, All In, while not being a great show, is the catalyst that brought us to where we are today, and that is what's important. So there it is, my retrospective on All In 2018. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I know I was a little bit harsh at points on this pay-per-view, but also, I had to watch this entire pay-per-view on a 6-hour layover at the Boston airport, so maybe I wasn't in the right headspace to be watching professional wrestling, and maybe it was weird having to explain those penis druids to the people around me. Whatever. Let me know in the comments below, and of course, let me know if you enjoyed this format of video. I don't really do pay-per-view reviews that often. Usually I just like telling the stories of professional wrestling versus letting you know what I thought. So let me know if you dig this or the other style of videos. Whatever you tell me to do, I will do more of. So let me know in the comments below. And of course, make sure to like, make sure to comment, and make sure to subscribe, because when you're a fight boy, you're a fight boy for life.